Worst jobs in history. If you think you're having a hard time getting used to doing a 9-to-5 job, then wait until you hear about the worst and most disgusting jobs in history. Some of these jobs were dangerous, but people still did it to feed their families. So make sure to watch till the very end and find out the worst jobs ever in history. Make sure to subscribe and leave a thumbs up. Number 1. Pure finders. Back in 19th century, leather had to be dried for several days before making book bindings out of it. But to shorten this time, people started using something called pure, which was essentially dog poop. People used to run around in the city and collect the feces of street dogs to use them in the bookmaking process. This job became so popular that more and more people started doing it and collecting dog poop. However, it doesn't sound like the most appetizing job to us. Also, they had to carry the poop around with them, so make sure to keep this in mind before sniffing old books from now on. Number 2. Plague bearers. They were extremely poor people in the 17th century London. It was the time when the plague killed more than 69,000 people in the city, and the government wanted people to bury the dead. So these plague bearers were given the job to appear at night and collect all these bodies from the city and dig mass graves for them. These bodies were completely rotten, and the plague bearers actually risked their own life while burying them. And not only this, but during the day they were not even allowed to walk on the streets, but were quarantined in the church so they couldn't infect others. Indeed, one of the worst jobs in history, and that too at the risk of your own life. Number 3. Gong Farmer. Gong farmers were people who used to work in London back in 15th century. It was the time when drainage was a huge issue in the city, and despite having a lot of public toilets, the smell was unbearable for the whole city. So gong farmers came to play. These were the people who worked at night and dug the cesspits for getting all the poop and feces out of the city. They were getting paid per ton of the feces they discarded. These farmers had to stay in the holes for several nights and at times with half their body inside human waste. And the worst thing is that they often died from suffocation or diseases. This is definitely the most disgusting and dangerous job in the history, in my opinion. Number 4. Stool Groomer. Stool groomers stayed in fashion in Britain for several centuries. In fact, the tradition was only abolished in 1901. The meaning of groom of the stool was someone who took the king to the toilet. And he didn't do just that. He also checked the king's feces to see if everything is going all right with his digestion system. But that's not all. Groomers were even responsible for cleaning the bottom of the king after they were done doing their business. And the odd thing is that this job was very sought after and elite back then. Number 5. Leech Collector. During the Middle Ages, when a medical professional needed to drain blood out of a patient's body, they used leeches. But to get access to these leeches, specialized leech collectors were needed. These were people who would go to ponds nearby and dive right into them. They attracted a lot of leeches, and when enough leeches stuck on their body, they came out of the water, pulled them out, and stored them in a container to sell them. However, the process was very painful and even ended up killing a lot of people because of excessive blood loss. Number 6. Radium Girls. These were just regular girls from poor families working in a watch factory. This factory used radium to make the watches glow in the dark. But while working with radium, they slowly ingested a lot of it over the years. As a result of this, the girls developed a condition that caused their skin to glow. They were referred to as ghost girls because of this. All of these girls ended up having some sort of deformity, and it usually started with toothache, but then turned into ulcers, bleeding, lesions, and necrosis in the jaw. This turned out to be even more cruel because all of them knew that they don't have a lot of time to live. This was one of the worst jobs because it killed every single person doing it. Number 7. Vomit collector. In ancient Rome, feasts were organized for noble men, and they had to eat until every one of them was done. So if someone felt full, it was considered rude to stop eating during the feast. So they found a solution. They used to vomit all the food out and then started eating again, and this way the feast would continue for several hours. But to make sure the vomit would not get everywhere, they hired vomit collectors. These people would walk around in the vomit of these noblemen and collect it into a bucket and clean the area constantly so they can enjoy their feast in a peaceful environment. Number 8. Sin Eater. If this job doesn't sound the worst already, then we don't really know what does. The job of a sin eater was to consume all the sins of a dead person so he could have an easier transition to his eternal life. The process was performed by placing a piece of bread on the chest of the dead body, and then the sin eater was supposed to eat that bread. Sounds disgusting? Well, it was a very common practice in Wales and was supposed to lift off the burden of all the sins from the dead body of the deceased. So which one of these jobs sounds the worst to you? Tell us in the comment section. Also, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to get the latest updates. We'll see you in the next video.